gentlemen, because I see that there are a few gentlemen here in the audience. I'm very happy to have been invited to this forum with such prestigious panel also. And I want to talk to you today about heroes, wonderful women. Women account for more than 50% of the population, but less than 20% are politically representatives. Gender stereotypes and inequality are still, unfortunately, widespread. On the other hand, it is women who are always on the front line of the conflicts, suffering the most from civil wars and conflicts all over the world, trying to hold the communities together. And once the weapons have stopped firing, they are also the ones who try to repair the families to build a sustainable peace. Millions are working for peace every day in the shadows, often in very dangerous places or under brutal dictatorships. They receive no support, very little help, no honor and no recognition. Nevertheless, they pursue their goal, believing in their mission. And for me, they are real heroes. The Nobel Peace Prize recognizes individuals or associations who try to improve their societies using peaceful means and promoting human rights. Exactly what those women do. And despite the fact that wars are overwhelmingly waged by men, as Jody Williams, one of the Nobel Peace Prize, noted, rightly so, only 16 women have been awarded with the Nobel Peace Prize. And in more than 100 years of existence, like you heard before. Yet another striking gender inequality, which can be explained by the fact that the Nobel Committee, like many other institutions, all through the 20th century, was mainly masculine. Since 1991, the committee has tried to balance its act a little bit and distinguish 9 women, which represent more than half of the total in 100 years. They have tried also to make a balance geographically, because all through the 20th century, it was largely the Western countries who were awarded. I had the chance to meet 8 of the 10 laureates who are still alive. They are truly remarkable, and their personal story is amazingly inspiring. They are really grassroots activists, and as Eve Ensler has said about the activists, they are obsessed, unstoppable, and passionate. They are the human beings who give birth to the new world. The women that I met are all that, but they're also full of humor, enthusiasm, mischief sometimes. These encounters have been a privileged moment for me, and an incredible lesson of resilience and hope. So let me talk to you about some of these heroines and the way they helped to change the world. I will start with the 2 Irish women. Mairead Corrigan and Betty Williams, for instance, received the Nobel Peace Prize in 1976 for their efforts in reconciliation in Northern Ireland. Those women were ordinary working-class mothers, although Betty Williams, one of the laureates, says that she doesn't like the word because she has still to meet an ordinary mother or woman. And they were both absolutely not determined to be activists. They were both Roman Catholics, they had a loving family, they had a job, they had no academic pathway. They were aware, of course, of the lack of basic civil rights that the Catholic community was suffering at the time. And they also had suffered in the hands of the British Army during a lot of controls and many incidents. But that was the daily life in the troubled 70s, when each day some militias from both sides were just entering houses, killing people, throwing bombs. That was the time. And if Betty Williams sympathized for a while with the Irish Republican Army, she soon began to question their violence. Mairead, for her part, was always committed to non-violence, and she was helping others in different religious communities. One day, the 10th of August, 1976, everything would dramatically change for those 2 Irish women who didn't know each other. Anne Maguire, who was Mairead's sister, was walking back from school with her 4 children. Joanne, 8 years old, was biking in front, while Mark, 7, and John, 2.5, were following, walking behind. She was pushing the pram with 6-week-old baby Andrew. Then suddenly she heard some shots. And a few minutes later, a car drove back. Driving that car was a young man, Danny Lennon, who was a member of the IRA and was trying to escape 2 military jeeps with British patrol. He was shot dead, but the car continued its course, mounted on the pavement, and just mowed down the 3 children of Anne Maguire. Joanne and Andrew died instantly. John, the little one, and his mother, severely wounded, were taken to the hospital, where the little boy died, while his mother was in a coma. Muriel heard all that on the radio of her car, driving back home. She heard that 3 children had been killed on Finaghy Road, and she didn't know they were her nephews. She only knew when she reached her home. Betty Williams, who didn't know her, just happened to drive by with her little girl back from school also, and she just arrived when the killing took place. She saw the bodies, the pavement, the blood. She was, of course, shocked, upset, trying to hide the eyes of her little girl for her not to be completely traumatized. Then she drove back home, and she left her girl with a member of her family, and not knowing exactly what happened to her, she decided she had to act. So she grabbed a notebook, a pencil, and she went door by door to all her neighbors, just saying, do you want peace? Do you want this violence to end? Do you want our son, brother, and husband to leave? And all the women started to write and give their signature. They soon ran out of paper, but they kept collecting signatures all the night. By the end of the night, they had 6,000 signatures, women and also men. Betty called the press the next morning, and she started to say, what happened to the Maguire family could have happened to any one of us. I'm selfish in saying that. I'm a mother. That could have happened to me. We have to stop that. Muriel heard Betty on the television, and she called her. And the 2 women decided that they had to do something. Muriel invited her at the funerals of the children. That's where they met for the first time. And also after the funeral, Muriel went to the house of Danny Lennon, the young boy from the IRA, and she gave to his mother roses from the coffin of the little nephews. And she said, I just want to share the grief you had as a mother. The following day, the 2 women assembled 10,000 people in Belfast, and they started joining from both sides. At the time, the city was divided with the sectarian divide between the communities of Protestant and Catholics, but the women just walked through. They were like walls with barbed wire, and they just joined in and started to march and say, enough is enough. They met a journalist, Chiran McCohen, who decided that he wanted to help those women, and the 3 of them made an association, Peace People. And they started to organize rallies all over Northern Ireland, then Britain, then Ireland, just to influence the policymakers. And every Saturday there were more people, until there were hundreds of thousands of people demonstrating every week, including in London, in Hyde Park, where John Baez went to sing on the stage. It was an extraordinary moment, and everybody was taken by this momentum. They traveled abroad, they tried to get some money in the United States, everywhere, to help the cause of the peace, really to change heart and minds. Of course, the peace process didn't happen there. It happened more than 20 years later. But I strongly believe that their action, of those 2 women, were the foundation stones of building that peace. An example of how citizens working together, normal citizens, courageous women, can make a difference. Another example of this citizen working together is obviously the story of Jody Williams and the international campaign to ban landmines. In 6 years, they managed to have 122 countries signing a treaty banning that terrible weapon, this conventional weapon which killed more civilians than military. mainly thanks to the incredible determination of this American activist, Jody Williams, and her power to convince. When I met her, she said to me, yes, I'm good at that. I can convince people. I have so much rage and indignation in me that I can transmit that to the people and challenge them to do something. She said, just get out of your seat and do something. You can change. And this fearless Jody, she learned the hard way. She learned at home because she had a schizophrenic brother, and she had to defend sometimes her mother from him. She told me that she completely stopped having fear because she had violence at home and she had to cope with it. And this process of dissociation would help her a lot in her working life. After her years at university, which coincided with the Vietnam Years' War and all the big student movement for peace, she began her work as an activist, wishing to influence the policy of the United States and to stop militarization. She then spent 11 years traveling back and forth from Central America with the aim of informing ordinary citizens, American citizens, about the civil war which was raging in El Salvador, and to tell the people about the support and funding given by the American administration to the Salvadorian military and also the terrible death squad. Those years would bring a weight of horrors, pains, disillusion with human beings. And when she stopped in 1991, she was quite exhausted. She wanted to forget all of that, all what she had seen, all what had happened, even the raid. And she was ready to accept a job from 9 to 5, just not to have to deal with the problems of others. But then she met Robbie Muller, director of the Foundation of Vietnam Veterans, who talked to her about the landmines and asked her to organize that campaign. She learned all about those weapons that are so vicious because they are silent, they are hidden, and suddenly they explode long after the conflict has finished, killing a child going to school, or a woman getting water, or a peasant plowing his field, and affects millions of people, not always killing them, but giving horrible wounds to the victims. So convinced about the virtue of the fight, she traveled the world to try to get official organization on board to inform them. And she had very quickly 6 NGOs, which she convinced to join the campaign. With her incredible energy and persuasion, she would mobilize people all over the world, organizing conference after conference, and also Princess Diana at the time became the emblematic figure of the cause. The rest is history. Jody's success was crowned by the award of the Nobel Peace Prize, and that's another proof that people working together can make an incredible difference. Another story, another woman, is Lemak Bowe in Liberia. And her, again, is going to mobilize all the women. She told me what distinguishes a villain from a hero is the choice of the moment of anger. Adolf Hitler and Martin Luther King were full of anger, but one became a mass murderer and the other one a man of peace. We all have it inside of us. She had a lot inside of her because she was 15, 16 when one of the most terrible civil war of Liberia broke. She saw her first murder when she was 18, and she said after she had seen so many that she could just pass and walk behind it or in front of it without even having emotion. She had to flee. She lived in a refugee camp. She was married to an abusive husband who fathered 4 of her children. She escaped and raised them alone. But back in her country, under the rule of the dictator Charles Taylor, she became an activist. She joined the Trauma and Healing Reconciliation Project, who had, among other programs, the reintegration of children soldiers. Those children, sometimes as young as 8, had been enrolled in the army by Charles Taylor and had become ruthless killers under the influence of alcohol and drugs. But after the conflicts, they were often wounded, handicapped, so they were just liabilities for the army and rejected. And their family, of course, didn't want them back. So they were just in the street in a terrible situation. Lema and her colleagues tried to help them, but it was almost impossible. So she started thinking, what can we do to take our country out of this misery? And she decided to do a network of women. She went in the marketplace, in the churches. She went to get women from Christian faith, women from Muslim, and she just told them, we want peace, a bit like the Irish women had done. We want to make a difference. And they did a lot. They did sitting every day. They went in front of the parliament. They did a work that was just difficult because it was every day. There was not really a success, but they continued. They were received at some point by the president, but it didn't have a decisive impact. So they started to have ideas. One of them said, why don't we say that we want to do the sex strike? And of course, that immediately gave them an incredible tribune because the newspapers of the whole world talked about that. It didn't even start to work, but at least they had a recognition from the world. Somebody knew about the problem of those Liberian women trying to get peace. At the end, there was some tentative of peace negotiation in Ghana, but going nowhere. And they decided to go and say, we will take hostage the negotiators, and we will never leave the place until they sign the treaty. And that started to make a sort of commotion, because the negotiators got a bit worried about all these women being in the lobby of the hotel. And certainly, once again, that was an advance towards the peace that was finally signed sometime later. And all the women back in Liberia were really received with a lot of admiration by everybody. If I see one common denominator between all those heroines, I would say it's definitely the courage. The courage, or to phrase it better, the decision to stop the fear. Aung San Suu Kyi said fear is normal and natural, providing it doesn't stop you from doing what you should do, and it doesn't get control over you. Shirin Ebadi, another woman I met, the Iranian human rights defender, said, fear is like hunger. It's a natural instinct. We all have it, but we can defeat it. And Betty Williams told me, fear is contagious, but so is courage. So if you start showing courage, you will certainly emulate a lot of people. After seeing her parents being tortured and killed, and her brother dying, Rigoberta Menchú from Guatemala is another living proof of courage, because she continued the fight for the genocide in Guatemala to be known all over the world. And after it was finally recognized and finished, the civil war, she had the courage to go into a reconciliation program and try to put people together, which was very difficult after all those years of atrocious civil war, and to build a new society. Another one I met is Tawakkol Karman in Yemen, the young journalist who was at the time the youngest laureate of the Nobel Peace Prize. And she was the figurehead of the revolution in Yemen, in a country which is deeply patriarchal, where women have very little rights. They managed to bring down the dictator, and she's still risking her life because unfortunately the country is still in turmoil. And she has a lot of courage, this woman, to speak up for women, for journalists, for freedom. The last one, Malala Yousafzai, who is now the youngest laureate, of course, at 17, who unfortunately I didn't meet, but everybody knows how courageous she is because she was shot in the head in a school bus, and now she's determined to continue her mission. She wants to be prime minister of her country. She's full of idealism, and she wants to be the champion of the right for education for girls. Another thing that struck me is the fact that those women made incredible sacrifice of their personal lives in the pursuit of their mission. We all know about the dilemma faced by Aung San Suu Kyi, who knew that she could very well go and see her children and her dying husband, who was dying from cancer, but that she would never be able to go back to her country if she left it. And she decided, completely, with, of course, the agreement of her husband, that she would not go back. He died, she didn't see him again, and her children, she didn't see them for more than 10 years. But that was her decision, and it's admirable. Shirin Ebadi, in exile in London, because of her criticism of the Iranian regime and defense of all the political opponents, is separated now for years from her husband, who cannot join her. And there again, she knows she has received some message saying that if she is a bit less vocal about political opposing, well, she could go back to her country maybe. And she said to me, I will never accept to be silent. I could not even look at myself in the mirror. On the other hand, Betty Williams' marriage failed. She said that she's convinced that it is because she neglected her family for her work, another choice she made. But what we have to remember is that these women are not icons. Sometimes we tend to think that they are. No, they are just human beings. And sometimes receiving the prize is also an incredible responsibility, because everybody looks at you, listen to what you say, scrutinize really all your words and actions. Mairead and Betty, the two Irish women, were not prepared for the international fame and attention which surrounded the Nobel Prize. Mairead told me I couldn't cope. I just didn't know how to reply to the journalist, to speak to a minister. It was all new for me. And one day she said a joke, well, with the money of the Nobel Peace Prize, I might buy a fur coat. I always dreamt of doing that. And then the next day, the whole press criticized her. She was really terrible. Well, another thing is that after her sister, Anne Maguire, the one who lost her children, she finally committed suicide several years later because she just couldn't cope with the death of her children. And Mairead married her brother-in-law. And she said to me, that's the best thing that happened in my life, and for him and for the children, because we just recomposed the family. But you can imagine what that has meant for her in the press and in the public. So let's remember that they are just human beings, and sometimes we just don't accept that they are. Lema Gbowee, on her side, struggled for years with an alcohol addiction. And the most iconic of all, Aung San Suu Kyi, now is enduring a lot of criticism because she's not anymore an icon and a prisoner, an opponent of the regime. She's just a deputy. She has been released, and now she's back in the arena, and she is also criticized. But I would say that the very fact that these women are real human beings with all their mistakes and failures and failings, but that they can make a difference is a tremendous message of hope, because all of us, we can make that difference. We can all be activists in our little sphere or big sphere. And I would like to finish with a definition which is given by Shirin Ebadi, the Iranian lawyer, and which I like very much. She said, the politician is a leader who walks in front of the people, but the human rights activist walks right behind to be able to help the one that might fall.